Hi, everybody. It's Ellen Jaffe Jones, and I just thought I should weigh in on the plethora of vegan fails we've seen this week. Um, Maybe it's just spring cleaning and people feel like they have to make a change or something. I don't know. Why are we listening to people who have 4, 5, 6, 7 years of veganism under their belt, and then all of a sudden a pimple breaks out and they're not vegan anymore? Why are we not listening to people who have been vegan for the better part of 20, 30, 40 years? My publisher had the answer once. It's about looks, and it's about looking youthful and adorable, and frankly, it's the same thing that I learned in television news. It's also about age, and it's the entertainment business. So we are kind of stuck in that rut, whether we want to admit it or not. I get it. Um, Certainly, it's not where I get my news. I go to the vegan doctors, I go to the vegan registered dietitians. Those are the people who I have benefited from over the decades. And by the way, this is not vegan fail. This is vegan success. This is 159 5K or longer age group awards I've received since 2006, running just on plants. And people will come up to me at races and say, you can't run on a vegan diet, as I'm wearing this bright vegan shirt. And this is why I do what I do. Running is my activism. But beyond that, I have had my own challenges, and maybe we need to just get more videos like this out there, talking about what we faced in our 20s. I had a weight problem, and my sister was morbidly obese eventually, but in her 20s, when she first became overweight, she got diabetes, then heart disease. She died at 69, just a few years older than I am now. And all because there was a lack of education, for sure, but it was mainly because we just didn't have access to healthier foods and a better way of life. In fact, somebody just sent me a link to the Riverfront Times from St. Louis, Missouri, where I grew up. And the headline was, "St. Louis has really awful food." And it does. We lived a block away from the best bakery. We had deep, gooey butter cake every morning for breakfast. It was just horrible. And, the cheese, they put this terrible plastic-like additive to it. At least it tasted that way, called Provel cheese on all of the pizzas at the different restaurants near where I worked. And so often that's what we ate for lunch. It was disgusting stuff. So I thought it was funny that, now St. Louis is finally coming to grips with its very bad, like, I would say habits, but people are like proud of this stuff. Ted Drewes, some of the worst ice cream that's out there on the planet, and people stand in lines for blocks to get this stuff. It's nasty. So all of that said, I almost died of a colon blockage when I was 28. I'll go through this real briefly. Doctors said they'd never seen a blockage so large in somebody so young, and I would need to be on medication the rest of my life. Ran to the health food store, read all 5 books on fiber, went macrobiotic, then vegetarian, then vegan. I had several zigzags along the way because, again, we didn't have access to correct information. Doctors were telling me, even though I was vegan before I got pregnant, when I got pregnant, they said, you got to give the kids dairy. Your unborn child needs to consume whey protein, or they will have brain damage. They will not grow properly. So, what's a mother to do? Again, we know now that is completely false information, but at the time we didn't know that. So I went to circus protests back in the days when nobody was doing it, and that's really where I got my start from the ethical standpoint. Then I worked at Smith Barney there for 5 years, and it was incredibly difficult to eat a vegan meal. We had working lunches and dinner, and the only choice we had was the topping on the pizza, and then a dinner with clients that we were told we had to do. There were no choices. I kept my McDougall cups under my desk and tried to eat those as often as I could, but you cannot survive on McDougall cups alone. So that was my journey. I gained weight after being 5 years sitting at a desk and trying to deal with that, not to mention a really incredible stressful life. And when I moved to Florida, I was faced with having a hysterectomy from fibroid tumors. And I had a progressive vegan doctor who said, go back to that vegan diet and call me in the morning. And even though they wanted to do a hysterectomy, within 3 weeks, all signs of menopause were gone. And I didn't need the hysterectomy. Even the hot flashes were gone. So those are success stories. Those are much bigger stories than, oh my gosh, my stomach's a little upset, or I lost my period. You know, there's so many things you can do to, I mean, I certainly didn't lose my period during those times. And I was running as well. And running can also be a way that makes your period evaporate. So, you know, there are so many excuses that can be given if you don't be the investigative reporter to figure out the truth about food, which is what all of this was about. And then, along the way, figuring out, connecting the dots between animal rights and animal abuse and the health of this planet. So my own recent challenge was, since the age of 28, I have had chest pains, and I was told it was mitral valve prolapse, not to worry. And then I was recently told, after I experienced some severe, what I thought were severe chest pains while running, mitral valve prolapse was overdiagnosed. You have a little leakage of the valve, which is called regurgitation. Not a big deal, but let's go ahead and get you a coronary calcium score test done. So that is a CAT scan, and there is my score, 1600 plus. You're supposed to have a score between 0 and 400. So the doctors and the cardiologists are going, OMG, how did you get such a high calcium score? Well, there are several ways this is possible. It was all the garbage I ate. I did the high protein diets before I went to college and in college, because again, I was eager to maintain a healthy weight, didn't want to end up like my sister, dead at 69. And just in so much suffering and pain all of her life. And the high protein diets were widely touted as being successful during those times. And I initially was in this to avoid the breast cancer that got my mom, aunt, and both sisters. That's really what this was all about. We were part of the breast cancer gene studies. So when this calcium score came back, I thought, well, that's possibly one thing. Another thing is that ever since I've been a child, I've had chest x-rays for bronchitis and asthma. And doctors always said, have you been exposed to tuberculosis? And I said, no. And they said, oh, then the calcification we're seeing in your lungs is probably from histoplasmosis. Histoplasmosis, which I'm still waiting for a test back on that, can also calcify arteries in and around the heart. So that's possibility number 2. Then the thing about running is that endurance runners often get calcified arteries. Not a big deal, according to an article in Men's Health back in February, which says that endurance runners, and they did a whole study on men, of course, not women, because they said men have more mortality from heart disease. But it said that, you can run quite fine with calcified arteries into old age. So not to worry there. And so those, and the fourth possibility is this. They had me do gene testing. And this is the Boston Heart Diagnostics. As you can see, I am all green here. All my lipids are great. I don't have any chance of getting diabetes, especially the way I eat. There are a couple of red things. And so the next level was getting, those were the lipid panels I showed you. This is the genetic panel. This is a gene you don't want to have. What it means is I don't process LDL cholesterol. So it just kind of hangs around. And I'm told, though, still doing all that I'm doing, whole foods, plant-based diet, and intense aerobic exercise like what I'm doing should make it so that I don't have an event. But that's the thing about this calcium score. The reason the doctors freaked out is in the mainstream population, if you get a calcium score like that, that probably means your arteries are closed down too. The insides of my arteries are fine. It's just what they're made of that is calcified. So in this particular test, the doctors usually go, oh, you have like a high chance of having a heart attack or a stroke in the next 5 years. But because I'm already plant-based and I've been that way, the chances seem to be a lot less. At least I hope so. I've been stressing over this a whole lot. And finally, I did a 5K this weekend, and this is the Beer Belly 5K. And I got first in my age group. And there was a guy in a booth there, and I saw that people were getting their mouth swabbed, and I go up and I go, "What's this?" They said, "We're testing for the breast cancer gene, and you want to have yourself tested." And I said, "Well, I was part of the original breast cancer gene studies, the BRCA1, BRCA2 genes." And the guy says, "Well, you might want to retest, because even if you've had the test in the last 3 years, it's even more accurate. So maybe you got a false negative." I hope not. Turns out I am the only one, at least if the previous tests are correct, that doesn't have the gene, but everybody else does. And as a result, I kind of got chills, though, to see that this test is now so mainstream. And he was so excited to meet me. He said, "I've never met anybody who participated in that study. And we thank your family for your service, for donating your blood and running it to the airport so that it could, be tested in these special labs." So I told him, I shared what was going on with me and this whole cardiac thing. And he goes, "You just finished first in your age group in a 5K. My brother is a cardiologist, and cardiologists like to get upset and crazed about stuff." And he said, I'm an OBGYN, and I've had more arguments with my brother about these kinds of things. And the technology is great that you can learn all this stuff, but it doesn't mean that you're going to have a heart attack or a stroke. He said, "If you could finish a 5K with no chest pain, you're in good shape." So that's that story. I've done other kinds of studies. This is a sleep study. I'm in the top 5% of all people my age who sleep. I asked the doctor, "Are you sure it's not the 1 or 2%? I'd like to know." And he goes, "Do you have to be first or second and everything?" And I go, I was an investigative reporter. I just want to know why my calcium score is so high. I had a carotid artery test, and that's all fine. All the artery is clear, no blockage whatsoever. Passed the stress test. I spent 11 minutes on a stress test, which on the treadmill, which I guess is pretty good for my age, and no chest pain during that. So what is the chest pain? Not sure. And it's just part of my normal. Do some people have chest pain all their life? I don't know. I have all these unanswered questions, and I hope to find out more answers as I check in with more vegan cardiologists and other experts, just sticking to the same program. But I did just want to make this video to say there are some great success stories out there, and I really think I'm one of them. First, currently now in the state of Florida, in all 6 track events, 50 meters to the 1,500 meters. I am currently, up until the national games happen again this summer, 3rd in the U.S. in the 4x100, 5th in the in the 800, 7th in the 1,500 and the 400 meter dashes. So I do all this running, and how can I have, do I say it, heart disease? I mean, there's even disagreement among doctors whether I have heart disease. When you have a calcium score this high, some doctors say, "Oh my gosh, you do." But some of the vegan doctors say, "No, you just have a little issue going on with your heart." So we're going to find out, and I'll be updating. If you have any questions, comments, please put them down below. If I can help you in any way, yeah, there it is. I am a certified personal trainer as well as a certified running coach, and I hope you have a great day. Gotta run.